Good evening. We're here this evening with Frederick Voluptuous. Frederick, your role as the synthesizer player in the Inhuman League in the 1830s was said to have been a pivotal influence on the way that pigeons line their nests. Would you say that you'd set out to influence avian history?
I thought that when I started, synthesizers at the time, they were rich. They were a rich source of music, but yet they weren't yet tapped by the industry at the time. I realized the avian influence when I first started playing a song in my study. I told my housemate. She just kept piling the coal into the generator, and the noises were getting richer and stronger as the music went on. And a single pigeon, it came down and landed on my windowsill, and looked at me as if to say, "Why aren't I in there with you?" And I let him in, and the rest is, as you say, confusing.
Would you say that it was yourself or the pigeons that added colour to numbers?
Well, when I talked to the pigeons, they would all, you know what pigeons are like. I would agree, obviously. I would say, yes, of course, that needs to be slowed down, but it doesn't matter about the reproduction of the engines themselves or what's creating the problem. They'd be stubborn, they'd stick on the subject. But, of course, eventually we'd get later into the night, the wine would get stronger, the cheeses would get more mature, and the conversation would go into things more personal. And the pigeons would say, "Peter, why is your music grey?" And it took me a good 44 years to realise that I was imagining these pigeons, but the point still stood. I'd lost my wife, I'd lost my family, but I'd gained colour. And bearing in mind, this was when the Industrial Revolution was, well, it started in the Industrial Revolution. Isambard was dead, but I still kept close contact with his spirit. And he said, "Peter, make sure you use the colour indigo."
So would you say that Isambard's spirit was colourful or numerical, or somewhere between the two?
Isambard has always been between two things, be it his wife and lover, be it between magic and science, and be it between leather and an apron. He's always been a close and firm supporter of the colour indigo, and he was basically the one who told me, "Peter, listen to your pigeon."
Was the fact that you were so close to Isambard Queendom, Brunel Kingdom, maybe, probably because of the reason that, how would one put this, he did shine like indigo and have a value of numbers?
I think he knew about his numerical value, and that's what tore him up near the end, after, of course, the tunnel flooding of Pontypool's hotel reservoir system. And he was tore up. He said to me, he said, 18, 12, 44, 76, 9, 55, 12, 8. At that point I knew he'd obviously lost it. The deaths had gotten to his head after the thing in the Thames. I just couldn't talk to him anymore. So what I started doing was just yelling at him. And he'd sit there in his chair, we'd trepan him with a Black & Decker drill, and we used to just yell into the hole, "Come back, Isambard. It's finished now. They've made you a bridge." But he never did come back.
Even at this point, though, many argue that he did have, and you did help to bring out, and it was an influence upon you, that he still had evidence of genetic pigeonhood.
Now here's where his daughter's going to kill me, because I knew I knew her mother, and she was
An egg.
an egg.
Yes.
I met her on top of, you know when you go to a DIY store, and you get the racking that goes right up, and you look at the top and you go, why the fuck is anything up there? I can't buy that. But then you get up there after you've climbed up when the man's not looking, and there's a small nest full of pigeon eggs.
And cheese on toast.
That's how they met.
Yes.
And he brought the eggs back home. He said, "You're my eggs. I am your father. You are mine." And as you know, the eggs hatched. He obviously, after him eating them every night with his anus, and what a beautiful child it was. She would coo until the day started.
Quite.
And it's a shame she was eaten by him, but as we all know, the Isambard spirits are just not quite easily dismissed.
No, and many would argue that it's her destiny. Would you agree with that?
I think that why else would you find a nest?
Quite.
If it wasn't for destiny.
Some say that your influence beyond Isambard, the empirical Brunel, is sometimes misjudged and taken as part of common pencil cases.
Well, that always annoys me, because I've always been a big follower of pencil cases. I love the ones, you know, where you get the football on the circular end, the rest of it's black, in a cylindrical shape, but then every now and again you get someone who comes in, "Ooh, look at my beige pencil case. Completely flat and lifeless, like an old man's pocket dangling out of his broken jeans. Oh, I've cut off the trouser leg. I'm walking along the side of the beach, staring into the waters, gaping my eyes open at the young innocent women. Do I care? No, because I've got my wallet dangling out of my fucking trouser leg." But pencil cases, definitely a massive fan of the football-themed pencil case, and or the calculator built-in pencil case, which was only recently introduced by Craig David.
With, of course, the science that he introduced into the ontological sphere that Isambard indeed started with his own feathers.
Yes, the fact that you could use days of the week as a power source. I'm feeling a little loose on Monday. You didn't get much power, but he found a way to make Wednesday happen every day.
Yes.
And that's why Craig David is so tall now.
Well,
because
it's not commonly understood, but it's mainly surmised that the Queen Mother, in fact, did die because of a shock from a Friday.